Welcome back, and in this video we are going to finish off our build. We're going to do the top tile, and we just go quickly back to the middle tile. This is what we have. Like I said, just arrange them so the left peg comes first, middle peg, right peg, and we can see that we're checking to see if we're touching the peg first, then we're checking to see the position of the bottom tile. If the bottom tile is there, we go on top of it. If it's not there, we go to the bottom of the peg. Okay, nice and simple, nice and straightforward. And actually at this point, it's probably worth mentioning, if you've got this far and your program, your Tower of Hanoi game is working, but you've done it in a different way to me, don't go back and change it. There's no point. If it's working, it's working. That's the main thing. Often with programming, things like this, there's more than one way to do things. And there's no necessarily right or wrong way. It's just a way that works, or ways that work and ways that don't. Some might be tidier than others, some might be easier to follow than others, but if it works, it works. So don't go back and change yours to match mine if yours is working. Okay? By all means, if you're stuck or if you need to follow along, then follow along. But if you've managed to do it of your own accord and it's working, there's no need to change it. Now, with the top tile, I've gone ahead and I've put in our starting spot. So forever, if touching the middle peg, nice and easy. And this one's going to be a little bit trickier because there's a couple of different conditions we're going to have to check for. But the logic is always going to be the same. It's going to be if we're touching the tile, if we're touching the peg, we're checking to see if a tile is there or not. If it is, we go above it. If it's not, we go in its place. Okay, so bear with us. Let's see if we can go through this nice and slowly. So first of all, let's put our tiles back where they're supposed to be, like so. Okay. First things first, we're touching this. We know that our top tile can end up on top of this one on its own, on top of this one on its own, on top of both together, or on its own on each of these pegs. Okay? The first thing I'm going to check is I'm going to check to see if we have our bottom tile, or if our middle tile, is in the way. Okay, so we're going to check if our middle tile is in the way. We're going to do that the same way we did it for the middle. We're going to use our if else, and we're going to go for operators. We're going to go use the and. We're going to have the 2 equals in there. We're going to go for sensing, and we're going to grab the x and y positions. Okay, so middle, x position, put that in there. We can duplicate that, and y position of middle. And then we just have to match up the numbers. Okay, so it's going to be a 0 because we're on the middle peg, and since we're checking to see if it's at the bottom, it's going to be back. Okay, and in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this because we're going to need a couple of these that we can change later on. That doesn't need to be in there. So I should put those out the way for a minute. Now, if this middle one is in the way, what do? Well, we just end up on top of it. So we change, we use our glide, and that in there, and then it's going to go to 0 and minus 108 because that's the y position that this middle one is at in the middle, so we don't want to end up out there. Okay, that's the simple bit. We're checking if we're touching the peg. If we're touching the peg, is the middle one at the bottom of it? If it is, we go on top. If it's not, the middle peg is not at the bottom of it, then there's two things that are possible. The middle peg is not here, or the middle tile rather is not here, and either the top tile is there instead, in which case we need to check for that, or the middle tile is on top of the top tile, in which case we need to check for that. So this is where we're going to have, if this isn't true, so if middle isn't at this position, that's not true, then we need to check where the top one is. Okay, we're going to go to control again, if else, we're going to go in there. Now, and you'll be able to see what I've done previously as we scroll down. Now, we need to check where the top one is. So is the top one at the bottom? It can only be at the bottom, but it can be at the bottom of one of 3 pegs. So let's grab one of these we prepared earlier, and we're going to change this to bottom. We're going to change this one to bottom to 0, -1, 3, 1. So if the bottom tile is at the bottom, okay, that's great. If it is at the bottom, then we're going to end up going on top of it. But if this isn't true, and this isn't true, then that means there's no tiles in the way of my top tile. Which means we know that this else statement already is going to end up at the bottom. So we can fill that in straight away, 0, -1, 3, 1. Okay, so that's filled in no problem straight away. Because we're touching the peg, we've checked to see where the middle one is. The middle one can't be at the bottom. So if the middle one isn't at the bottom, we check where the top one is. If the top one is not at the bottom, then there can't be anything at the bottom. So we go and put the top tile at the bottom. Now, if the top tile is at the bottom, we need to check where the middle tile is. Is the middle tile on a different peg, or is the middle tile actually on top of it? So now inside here, we're going to go for another if else. And we're going to say that if our x position of middle is now equal to 0, so that's never going to change, and -108, because it's going to be around here. If that's true, then our top tile goes on top of it. So we have 0 and -85, that works. And if it's not, then our top tile is going to end up here, because bottom tile is in the way, but the middle tile isn't in the way, so we end up on top of it. So we're going to go for 0 and then a -108. Okay, now before we check to see if this works, if you're wondering where these numbers have come from, these numbers are the positions of our bottom and middle tiles. Okay, we already know these because they can't end up anywhere else. We've already told them, for example, our bottom tile, if our bottom tile is touching the middle peg, it goes to this position 0 and 1, 3, 1. If our middle tile is touching the middle peg, it goes to one of these 2 positions, depending on where the bottom one is. Okay, so all we're doing is we're checking all these numbers against what we've previously done. If they're not there, then they're somewhere else, in which case it's not true. Okay, so let's run this and see how we are getting. So first of all, we're touching the peg, nothing is there, goes to the bottom. So far so good. Okay, let's start it again. Let's put this one there. Okay, that's there, so now it should go on top of it. Okay, that works. Great stuff. Let's put the bottom tile there. Should go on top of it. Okay, so something now has gone wrong, and actually it's jumping straight out at us. If we look in here, we can see that I've got x position of bottom equals 0 and x position of bottom equals -3, 1. So that should say y position. So I change that, let's run it again. Let's try this now. So we fixed that problem. So this should now end up on top. It does, excellent. And the final one we're checking is to see if it will go on top of all of them, which it does. So now we know that all of that works. Okay, so let's just run through this, what the logic is, and tell you what, let me get rid of this now. Let's run through the logic of this one last time. First things first, we check if we're touching the middle peg or not, and that we've released it. If this is true, then we look to see where the middle tile is. If the middle tile is at the bottom of our peg, then we simply go on top of it. Okay, so let's run this. So if we're touching, actually no, that's not what we're trying to check for first. This is what we're checking for first. So we check in, the middle tile is there, therefore we go on top of it. Excellent. Okay, so let's start again. So we know this is true, but what happens if this is not true? If this middle tile is not on our middle peg, the next thing we check is to see where the bottom tile is. Okay, so if we touch this, we've already checked the bottom tile isn't there. So the bottom tile isn't at this position, therefore we go to here. No, sorry, we go to here. Okay, and I realize one of the big glaring mistakes I've made is I've got go to on every single one of these. I don't want go to, I want glide. So I'll change that in a second. So middle tile isn't at the bottom tile isn't at the bottom. Okay, so this condition isn't true. We follow it down the side, we hit this else, and we end up going here. And this is a nice handy way of following these if else statements, or at least I find it useful. If you've got lots of them like so, follow down the sides. Okay, they're all enclosed. The first one is an if, then something else. So if this is true, then we simply do this blue one. If this is not true, we follow it down until we hit this else statement. Okay, this one, if this is true, we do this. If it's not, we follow it down to the else statement. Now, if we have our bottom tile in place, now we'll check this. This won't be true, so we'll end up in this. Our bottom tile will be in place. This will be true. Then we check to see where the middle tile is. At the moment, the middle tile is not at this position. This isn't true. And we'll go down and we'll go to this position instead. That's what happens there. And then finally, we check them all. So the last one is going to be touching the peg. Is the middle one at the bottom? It's not. Is the bottom one at the bottom? It is. Is the middle one in the middle? It is. And therefore we go to this position here. Okay? So give that a go. Read it through. Follow the logic. Nice and simple. Nice and steady. One step at a time. Start off with the middle and then build it up nice and slow. Don't try and go all in at the same time. Check one condition after another. So if the middle is in the way, yes or no. Then is the bottom in the way, yes or no. Then is the middle and the bottom in the way, yes or no. Okay, give that a go. Put that together for the middle one, and then try and do the same for the left and the right pegs. And you should then be able to play the game how it's supposed to be played, moving all of the tiles around how they should be without trying to move the bottom tile above these two, and without putting bigger tiles on top of smaller tiles. Okay, give that a go, and when you're ready, come back to the next video where we'll go over the full solution to this, the left and right pegs, and we'll add an extra bit on count how many moves you hit during the game. Okay, give that a go, and when you're ready, come to the next video.